3 years after Daniel Carter's funeral, Emily still kept his last voicemail saved on her phone. Not because she listened to it often. She didn't. She couldn't. But knowing it was there felt like keeping a door unlocked in a house she would never live in again. A private superstition. A thin thread to a life that had ended on a rainy Thursday afternoon when a state trooper knocked on her apartment door and asked her to sit down. That night, she had stared at the walls until sunrise, waiting for the world to reverse itself the way it sometimes does in dreams. It never did. So she learned how to be functional. She learned which grocery aisles didn't make her cry. She learned to smile when people said, "You're so strong." She learned not to correct them. And she learned not to look too closely at the details. The funeral had been closed casket. The crash had been catastrophic. The paperwork had been handled by Daniel's employer because he'd been driving home from a meeting. She'd signed where they told her to sign. She'd answered questions she barely understood. She'd let professionals carry the weight of the facts because her body couldn't carry anything else. That was how grief worked. It made you outsource reality. On the anniversary of his death, Emily went to work as usual. She answered emails. She attended a meeting. She laughed at the right moments. Then she came home, took off her shoes, and sat on the floor of her kitchen like she used to do when she was exhausted in her 20s, back when exhaustion meant too much life, not too much loss. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Spam had gotten worse lately, and grief didn't make you immune to scams. But something, an instinct older than logic, made her reach for the phone. The message was 3 words. "I'm still alive." Emily's lungs forgot what to do. She read it again. Then again. The letters didn't change. The words didn't soften. They didn't become a joke or a mistake. She sat perfectly still, waiting for the trembling in her hands to stop. Then another message arrived. "Don't call, don't tell anyone. Are you alone?" The phone slid in her palm as if it had weight now, as if it was no longer an object, but a living thing. Emily forced her fingers to move. "Who is this?" The response came faster than she expected. "Say the thing you said when the power went out, the first winter we lived together." Her throat tightened. No one else knew that moment. They had been in the dark, laughing, eating cereal from the box like kids, and she'd said it without thinking. "If we die in here, at least we die together." Emily typed with shaking thumbs. "If we die in here, at least we die together." There was a pause. Not a long one, but long enough for her mind to run wild. Long enough to remember Daniel's hands, Daniel's voice, Daniel's smell after the gym, the way he always tucked his napkin under his plate at restaurants. Then the third message arrived. "It's me. I'm sorry. I didn't have a choice." Emily stared at it until tears blurred the screen. She should have screamed. She should have called the police. She should have called her best friend, her mother, anyone. Instead, she whispered, "Daniel," into an empty kitchen, like saying his name might summon him from whatever nightmare this was. Her phone buzzed again. "If you want answers, tomorrow 7:40 a.m. south entrance of Morningside Station. Don't bring anyone. Don't look like you're meeting someone. Wear something plain." Then, as if the sender knew exactly how to keep her obedient, "And Emily, please, if they see you react, they'll know I reached you." She reread that line until her heartbeat steadied into something colder. They. There had always been a they around Daniel's death. Not in the official story, but in the way Daniel's workplace had taken control. The way they'd told her what was best. The way their legal department had shown up at her apartment with a sympathetic woman in a blazer who brought tissues and paperwork. Emily had assumed they meant insurance and lawyers, the machinery of tragedy. Now, they sounded like something else. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay on her bed with the phone on her chest, staring at the ceiling, listening to her building's pipes hiss like whispers. She tried to convince herself it was a hoax, someone cruel playing with her. But no scammer asked for the exact sentence spoken during a power outage. No random stranger knew the way Daniel signed his texts. No punctuation, no emojis, always short, always precise. And at 2:14 a.m., when her phone buzzed one last time, her blood turned to ice. If I don't show tomorrow, delete everything. Forget me. That's the only way you live. At 7:33 a.m., Emily stood outside Morningside Station with a coffee she didn't taste and a coat she hadn't worn in years because it reminded her of him. She had chosen it anyway. It was plain. It made her look like a commuter. It made her look like someone who belonged in the crowd. A train roared overhead. People streamed past her, faces buried in phones, shoulders hunched against the cold. Emily watched every man who walked toward her. At 7:39, she was ready to accept she had been fooled. At 7:40, someone brushed her elbow. Light contact, intentional. A voice behind her said, "Don't turn." Emily's stomach collapsed. The voice was quieter than she remembered, rougher at the edges. But it was his. Daniel. "Walk," he said, "like you're late." Emily's legs moved before she told them to. Her mind stayed behind, stuck in the moment where her husband had been lowered into the ground 3 years ago. They walked side by side through the station entrance, not looking at each other. Daniel kept his head down. He wore a baseball cap and a cheap jacket. His posture was different, tighter, as if he lived with invisible walls. "Keep your eyes forward," he murmured. "There are cameras." Emily swallowed hard. "Where are you?" "Not here," he said. "We talk for 2 minutes. Then you leave." 2 minutes. 3 years of grief, compressed into 2 minutes. Emily's voice shook anyway. "Are you real?" A small exhale, almost a laugh, but it died immediately. "Yeah." Her chest filled with heat and anger so sudden it made her dizzy. "You let me bury you." "I know." "You let me?" Her voice broke. "You let me become this." "I didn't want—" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I didn't have options." They passed a vending machine. Daniel angled them toward a corridor with fewer people. Emily's hands clenched around her coffee. "Why?" Daniel's gaze flicked to a security camera and away. "Because I saw something I wasn't supposed to see." Emily blinked. "At your job?" He nodded once. "It wasn't just my job. It was a pipeline, contracts, government money. And they were moving it through shell companies, billing for work that didn't exist." Emily's mouth went dry. Daniel had worked in corporate compliance for a large defense contractor, mostly boring policy reviews, long meetings, spreadsheets. "What did you do?" she whispered. "I reported it, internally, like you're supposed to." His voice went flat. 2 days later, someone followed me home. A week after that, my laptop was stolen from my car. They wanted to know what I had. Emily's mind flashed to their last argument, small and stupid. Him telling her to lock the door, her rolling her eyes. She had blamed stress. She hadn't known. Daniel continued, They offered me a choice. Drop it and sign an NDA, or, he swallowed, or I become an example. Emily stopped walking. Daniel's hand grabbed her elbow sharply. Don't stop, he hissed. She forced her legs to move again, heart pounding. So you faked your death? Daniel's voice went even lower. They did. Not me. Emily felt the world tilt. What does that mean? It means I didn't plan to disappear, Daniel said. I planned to fight it. I thought the truth would protect me. His mouth tightened. I was wrong. They reached the end of the corridor. Daniel slowed just enough to speak clearly into the space between them. I was hit from behind. Woke up in a hospital under a different name. Private facility. No windows. Security at every door. His eyes stayed forward. They told me I had died in a crash. They told me you'd be safer if you believed it. Emily's throat burned. You believed them? I didn't have a phone. I didn't have access to anything. They controlled the news, the records, everything. His voice cracked for the first time. I fought like hell. They restrained me, medicated me, told me if I tried to contact you, you'd have an accident too. Emily's hands started to shake again. So, you stayed gone? Daniel's silence was the answer. They emerged near the street exit. Daniel stopped beside a newspaper stand, using it as cover. He slid something into her coat pocket. Don't take it out here, he said. It's a flash drive. It has names, accounts, evidence. He hesitated. And it has a video of me 3 weeks after the funeral. Emily's breath caught. Why give it to me? Because I'm out now, Daniel said, and the words felt impossible. I ran. I have maybe days before they find me. His voice turned urgent. I need you to do something. Emily's mind screamed that this was insane, that she should run, that she should call someone, but her body was locked onto him like gravity. What? She whispered. Daniel's eyes finally met hers for half a second, enough to destroy her. Trust no one connected to my company, he said. Not the police, not your lawyer, not the insurance. His gaze flicked to the crowd. And listen carefully. Someone in our life helped them. Someone close. Emily's blood turned cold. Who? Daniel's voice was almost lost under the city noise. I don't know. But I know how they knew where I'd be, how they knew you, how they moved so fast. A train horn blared. Daniel stepped back. Wait. Emily reached for him. He shook his head. If you touch me, you'll remember this forever. If you don't, you might live. Emily's eyes filled. Daniel, please. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry I left you in that grave. Then he turned and disappeared into the crowd, like a shadow, slipping into daylight. Emily stood there, shaking, until a stranger bumped her shoulder and snapped her back into the station's reality. She didn't breathe normally until she reached her car. Only then did she pull the flash drive out of her pocket. It felt heavier than it should have. At home, Emily locked the door, closed the blinds, and sat at her kitchen table, the same place where her life had just been rewritten. Her laptop was old, safe, disconnected from any work network. She plugged in the drive. A folder opened automatically. Read first. Inside, scanned documents, spreadsheets, internal emails, screenshots of accounts, and a short video file labeled Proof. Emily hesitated before clicking. The screen filled with a dim room. Daniel sat in a chair, pale, thinner, eyes hollow. A date stamp in the corner. 23 days after funeral. He looked into the camera and spoke. If you're watching this, Video Daniel said, voice flat, it means I'm still alive. It means they lied. And it means they're capable of anything. Emily covered her mouth. Tears fell silently, not from sadness this time, but from rage. Video Daniel continued. Emily, if they let you see this, it's because they wanted you to. That means they're watching you too. So you need to understand. The danger isn't just the company. It's someone who's been close enough to you to guide you. The video paused, glitched, then resumed. I don't know who it is, Daniel said. But I know one thing. The insurance payout was never meant to help you. It was meant to buy your silence. Emily's hands went numb. The insurance payout had arrived fast. $2 million. She had hated the money, felt guilty about it, like accepting it meant accepting he was truly gone. She had tried to donate most of it, but the legal process had been complicated, and her lawyer had advised waiting. Her lawyer. Emily's stomach tightened. At the bottom of the folder, there was another file. Beneficiary update. 2 weeks before crash. Emily opened it. It showed Daniel's life insurance beneficiary had been changed, recently, unusually, and with a signature that looked like Daniel's, but wasn't quite right. The curve on the D was too sharp. A fake signature, meaning the payout had been triggered by someone who wanted it triggered. Emily scrolled further down. A line item listed who had submitted the beneficiary change request. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Submitted by Legal Liaison, Catherine Moore. Emily stared at the name until it blurred. Catherine Moore was the sympathetic woman in a blazer. The one who had brought tissues and paperwork. The one who had sat in Emily's living room and said, "We'll take care of everything. You don't need to worry." Emily had thanked her. Emily had cried in front of her. Emily had trusted her. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Did you watch it? Emily didn't reply. Another message. You have 24 hours to hand over the drive, or you'll lose more than sleep. Emily's skin went cold. Daniel had warned her. They're watching you. She shut the laptop. She stood up. She paced her apartment like an animal in a cage. Then she did something she hadn't done in 3 years. She stopped being the person tragedy had made her. She became the person she used to be before grief. Decisive, stubborn, dangerous when cornered. Emily took out a notebook and wrote one word. Control. If someone had used her, she would stop being useful. And if Daniel was telling the truth, if someone close had helped, then the only way to survive was to stop reacting and start planning. She needed an ally she could trust. But who? She thought of her mother, too terrified, too far away. She thought of her best friend, kind, loud, incapable of subtlety. Then she remembered a name Daniel had mentioned once, years ago when he complained about that stubborn investigator in Risk who never lets anything slide. A man who didn't work for legal. A man who hated corruption. Emily searched the company's public staff directory. She found him. Marcus Hale, internal audit, former/compliance consultant. Former. Meaning he was no longer inside the machine. Good. Emily sent him a message through a professional contact form. I have information about Daniel Carter. I need help. Please meet me somewhere public. I'm being watched. She didn't include details. Then she made a decision that scared her. She texted the unknown number back. Okay, tell me where. 3 dots appeared. Then, tonight, 9 p.m., Rivergate parking garage, level 4. Come alone. Bring the drive. Emily stared at the message and felt a calm settle over her like armor. If they wanted a meeting, she would give them one. but not on their terms. At 8:45 p.m., Emily parked across the street from Rivergate and turned off her headlights. She didn't bring the drive. She brought something else, a decoy USB filled with harmless files and a small recording device taped under her sleeve. She also brought the oldest weapon she had, memory. Catherine Moore's face, her voice, her mannerisms. Emily walked into the garage with her hood up, footsteps echoing. The air smelled like oil and damp concrete. Each step felt like walking into a trap, and it probably was. Level 4 was emptier, darker. A figure stepped out from behind a pillar. Not Catherine, a man. Mid-40s, clean-cut, expensive coat. He looked like someone who belonged in a courtroom, not a parking garage. He smiled like he knew her. "Emily Carter," he said. Emily stopped at a safe distance. "Who are you?" He tilted his head. "Someone who can end this peacefully." Emily held up the decoy drive. "You want this?" He took a step forward. "We want what belongs to us. That information is proprietary." Emily felt her anger flare. "You faked my husband's death." The man sighed, as if she was being inconvenient. "We protected you. You got a payout. You got closure." Emily's nails dug into her palm. "Closure isn't real if it's a lie." He smiled again, colder. "Truth is a luxury. Most people can't afford it." A car door slammed somewhere below. Emily's heart jumped. The man watched her reaction with interest. "You're alone," Emily lied. "Yes," he gestured, then handed over. Emily didn't move. "Where's Daniel?" The man's smile faded. "Not your concern." Emily forced her voice steady. "He contacted me." A flicker in his eyes, something like surprise, quickly buried. Then, from the shadows behind him, another figure stepped forward. Catherine Moore. Same blazer, same calm expression, same soft voice. "Emily," Catherine said gently, like they were back in the living room with tissues. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Emily stared at her. "You sat in my house." Catherine's eyes didn't blink. "I did my job." "You forged his signature." Catherine nodded once, like confessing to paperwork. "He needed to disappear. You needed to believe it. That was the safest outcome." Emily's voice cracked with fury. "For who?" Catherine's gaze hardened. "For everyone, including you." Emily lifted the decoy drive. "You want it?" "Here." She stepped forward and tossed it. Catherine caught it smoothly. The man relaxed, slightly. "Good." Emily's pulse hammered. "Now tell me where he is." Catherine looked at the man, then back at Emily. "He's alive, for now." She softened her voice again, weaponizing kindness. "Emily, go home, forget. You've survived 3 years. You can survive the rest." Emily's stomach twisted. "You threatened me." Catherine's expression didn't change. "We warned you." "There's a difference." The man pocketed the drive and stepped closer. "This is over." Emily's sleeve device recorded everything, the threats, the admissions, the casual cruelty. But she knew recording wasn't enough. These people didn't fear truth. They feared consequences. Emily forced herself to ask the question that mattered. "Who helped you?" she said. "Who inside my life gave you access?" Catherine paused, just a fraction too long. Then she smiled, almost pitying. "Emily," she said quietly, "we didn't need help. You gave us access." Emily's skin went cold. "What does that mean?" Catherine's gaze dropped, briefly, to Emily's phone. Emily's breath caught. Her phone. The one she had carried through grief. The one she had used to message Marcus. The one she had held while reading Daniel's texts. Catherine's voice was soft, almost compassionate. You never replaced the phone after the funeral, she said. You kept it because it made you feel close to him. Emily felt the floor tilt beneath her. Catherine continued. It was his work phone, enrolled in our management system. We always had visibility. Emily's throat went dry. We didn't just watch Daniel, Catherine said. We watched what Daniel touched. Emily's mind screamed. The unknown number could have been them, or Daniel, or both. A controlled channel. The man stepped closer, voice sharp. You're done here. Emily backed away slowly, keeping her face neutral, hiding the terror flooding her. She turned and walked away, steady steps, controlled breathing, until she reached the stairwell. Only then did she run. At home, she ripped the SIM card out of her phone and snapped it in half. She powered down every device. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, heart pounding like it wanted to escape her body. Then a knock came at the door. Emily froze. Another knock. Calm. Patient. A voice, quiet through the wood. Emily, it's me. Daniel. Real this time. Not a message, not a memory, not a voice in a crowded station. Emily didn't move. She couldn't. Open the door, Daniel said. We don't have time. Her hands shook as she stood. She looked through the peephole. Daniel's face was thinner. His eyes were sharper, older. But it was him. It was undeniably him. Emily unlocked the door. Daniel stepped inside and immediately checked the windows, the corners, like someone trained to expect traps. Emily stared at him, words tangled in her throat. I saw you, she managed. I met them. Catherine. Daniel's jaw clenched. You shouldn't have. I didn't have a choice, Emily said, and the bitterness in her voice surprised even her. That's what you said too. Daniel flinched. I'm sorry, he said, but it sounded like a fact, not a plea. They got to you faster than I hoped. Emily swallowed. Did you really text me? Daniel nodded. Yes, but I don't control the channel. They monitor everything tied to my old devices. I had to use it anyway. It was the only way to reach you without stepping into their system. Emily's eyes burned. You let me believe you were dead for 3 years. Daniel's face tightened. I tried to get out sooner. I couldn't. Emily laughed once, sharp, broken. And now you're here. Daniel stepped closer. Because I have something now. Something they can't bury. Emily's voice dropped. What? Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. Not a flash drive. Paper. Handwritten. He placed it on the table. Emily stared at it. What is that? She whispered. Daniel's eyes met hers. A confession. Signed. Not by Catherine. Emily's breath caught. By who? Daniel's voice was low, deadly calm. By the person who authorized everything. The person who approved the staged crash. The person who ordered the beneficiary change. Emily's mouth went dry. Daniel said the name. And Emily felt the last 3 years rearrange themselves into a new shape. Because the name wasn't a faceless executive. It was someone she knew. Someone she had cried with. Someone who had held her hands at the funeral. Someone who had told her, we'll get through this together. Daniel leaned in slightly. Emily, he said, the reason they didn't kill me is because they needed me alive to keep their leverage. The reason they let you bury me is because grief makes people obedient. Emily's eyes fell to the envelope again. Her hands trembled as she opened it. She read the signature, and for the first time since the message arrived, she truly understood what too late meant. Because the person behind it all wasn't just part of the company. They were part of her life, and they weren't done. Emily looked up slowly. Daniel was watching her, waiting for her to break. She didn't. She folded the paper carefully and slid it back into the envelope. Then she met his eyes, calm, controlled. "Okay," she said quietly. Daniel blinked. "Okay?" Emily stood, walked to the kitchen, and took out 2 glasses like she was hosting a normal evening. "Yes," she said, voice steady. "Now we stop running." Daniel's shoulders tensed. "Emily," she cut him off gently. "You came back for a reason. You have proof. They have threats. And someone close to me is in this." She placed the glasses on the table with a soft clink. "We're done being scared." Daniel stared at her. Emily leaned forward. "We're going to make them choose," she said. "Exposure or collapse." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "How?" Emily's smile wasn't warm. It wasn't kind. It was strategic. "Because they still think I'm grieving," she said. "They still think I'm predictable." She tapped the envelope. "They don't know I'm awake." Daniel exhaled slowly, like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. Outside, somewhere in the city, cars moved and lights changed and people lived ordinary lives. Inside Emily's apartment, a dead man sat at her table, and a woman who had been broken quietly began to rebuild herself into something sharper. And as the night deepened, Emily understood the truth beneath everything. Sometimes the worst part isn't learning your husband is alive. It's learning how many people needed him to be dead, and how far they'll go to keep their lie breathing. But this time, Emily wasn't the one buried.